This episode of Planted is brought to you by Yorma's Choice.
The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Planted with Sara Payan. I'm Sara Payan, your host, and today we have Amirose Eisenbach on the show. She is the co-producer and head of partnerships for Reefer Madness, the musical. Amirose, welcome. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sara.
You have been super busy. Not that you weren't busy before this, but I'm really excited to go into the musical, everything you're doing. But before we do that, and there's a question I always like to ask all my guests, what was your first cannabis experience?
Good question. So I'm a born and raised Cali girl, and it's really interesting because despite it being, more liberal here, I still felt the stigma that we all did growing up. I was in high school, and I remember smoking for the first time with a bunch of girlfriends who were a little bit more mature and seasoned than I was. We'll just call it that way. And I remember saying I didn't feel anything. And then we went to a movie and I ate entire popcorn in a blank and was laughing at the funniest little things like that woman's hair. And it's so funny how I was so young, but there's core memories about that experience. And I was like, oh, this is what it is. It's kind of like euphoric, but it's light. I think I expected this much greater, bigger feeling and then clued in on it was. But yeah, it's locked in there forever.
That's awesome. Now, with the musical Reefer Madness, this was used before as a scare tactic tool back in the day, and it's amazing how many things back then became really campy, and we've been able to have fun with them now. But you were already, before the musical, you were already in the cannabis space, and how did you get into it? What caught your eye? What captured your imagination?
Yeah, my journey has not been a linear one. It's always been entertainment production adjacent, but the real kind of entry point into cannabis happened after I was making my first feature that I co-directed and produced called Equal Playing Field. And it's about 30 female soccer players from 30 different countries who summit Mount Kilimanjaro, play the highest soccer game ever played, and then went down to the Dead Sea in Jordan and played the lowest. And the whole message is real change happens from the top to the bottom. And so I went all in on this. It was, after a tragedy in my life that we'll get into later. And I think when you make it to the other side of something that just rocks you to your core, you're filled with this greater sense of life is meant to lift up others, period, full stop. And so I went all in on trying to do content and events that would do exactly that, unite humanity. And so I became obsessed with making this movie. And despite all odds and obstacles and crying fetal position evenings, any artist can relate to that, not a unique story. I got to a point where I finally got distribution and then a pandemic hit and I needed other work and I applied to a bunch of jobs. And at that point I had already worked for Warner Brothers and Turner Classic Movies and AMC and a lot of really respected, entertainment brands. And I was getting passed over for being too qualified and just all this very weird commentary. And my friend worked at a company called Flower Hire and she was like, you love cannabis, you're great at sales and events, are you still looking for work? And I said, absolutely. And so I spoke to Dave, the CEO, and no one warned me in my interview that he was 6'7" and I'm 5'3.5". So that was fun. And, kind of went in there and I always have ideas and my background of a content creator and all this. And he's like, well, what we really need right now is a recruiter. And I was like, well, I've never done that, but when I believe in something, I'll fight for it. And so it was a real come to Jesus for the first 3 months, learning a brand new industry. It's one thing to be a consumer. It's a whole other thing to understand compliance and, all the different markets and hurdles and obstacles that each uniquely has. And so that was hard on top of learning a new skill set. And finally, with, a really incredible team around me and patience and tenacity, I was able to kind of learn both. Mike Siebold was an amazing mentor. He kind of he works there as an advisor and partner. And he just really gives everyone their education in cannabis when you first start out at Flower Hire. And so finally I started learning both, and I became okay at it because I really fight for people and what I believe in. So once I actually had the trust there and became, one of their highest sellers for several quarters in a row, that's when I was in Dave's ear a little louder about, okay, now that the trust is built, I'm contributing to, the company, can I start doing events for you now? So that was kind of my entry point into just the industry at large.
That's cool. I mean, I think that there's something to be said for really getting in there and digging into the industry and learning more about it, because it's a learning curve. I know for me, I was working in nonprofits and civil rights before I got into cannabis, and I got into it because I had cancer. And when I got done, like you said, when something really impactful happens in your life, you start to reevaluate things and really think about, like, as far as we know, we have this one life to live. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to bring forth into the world? Mm-hmm. And then it's, cannabis is fascinating on its own, but then the people too, just the connections and the passion and everything can be very, even to this day, it's, and we're going through some very challenging times, especially in our state in California with cannabis. But it's still worth it. It's still very engaging. And how did you go from? Are you still doing any work with Flower Hire at all?
I am. And before I jump into that, I just wanted to honor you for your journey with cancer and turning to plant medicine and being such an advocate and just like such a force for this beautiful plant.
Thank you.
You've done some incredible work. And that's actually, my mom is what I alluded to earlier. She passed of cancer. It was just the 10-year anniversary in April. Oh. And I was one of her primary caregivers. I was running AMC Independent on the time, and I moved home, and so much suffering, so much everything that you go through of feeling like a number in the system. And I prescribed cannabis chocolate to her because she was having trouble eating and sleeping and everything. And in the last 6 months of her life, it is the only thing that helped. It would literally be part of her routine. And so I saw how much work we still have to do to make that medicine more widely available and also educate around that and fight against the stigma. So that's when I uprooted my entire life and quit my fancy job and security and dedicated to this company. But I had a very similar experience that you did through plant medicine, specifically cancer. So I wanted to honor that intersection before moving forward.
Oh, thank you. We have a ton to talk about. Yeah. And, I think going back to what you were saying about we have a lot to do as far as, cannabis as medicine and creating safe access. I think, one of the things that we have to keep reminding people who are working in the retail side as we get into legalization and they're thinking, oh, we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's actually creating greater access for people. So we have to have more conversations and education to have satisfying outcomes so people like your mom are able to use it as a tool to to be able to eat, maybe live a little bit longer, and at the very least have a good death.
Absolutely. And my dad, he had AFib surgery and he was having a hard time sleeping and he was miserable, and he's always been one of the most optimistic, stop and smell the roses kind of people, like so much wisdom and just joy for life every day. And he was becoming depressed for the first time in his life because when you don't sleep for that long. And so I prescribed edibles. I started with Night Bites from Pantry, shout out. And it changed his life. And now he started going to dispensaries on his own, and he loves to talk my ear off. Oh my God, the bud tender. I spent an hour. She was so patient, so knowledgeable. And so it's just, he's like, we need to make this more known. I'm like, we're trying, Daddy, we're trying. But he's just like, my friends, they should know. I was like, exactly. So I've watched full stop, like, the strongest pillars of my own upbringing, my own conditioning, how much it helped them with very different things. And so that made my fight so much more personal than just the recreational and my own, things that it helps me with. I've seen it firsthand, and it's just crazy how it's taken this long, and we have so much work left to do, but we got to celebrate the wins.
Yeah. And the wins are those aha moments that people have. Is your dad telling his friends and really just like sharing his good experiences with it?
I get texts from his like 80-year-old bestie. He's like, "Oh, what do you subscribe for this?" And I was like, I can give you recommendations based on brands I love and trust, but like, I really think you should go in and experience like how knowledgeable these bud tenders are. And, cause every different strokes for different folks, it's just like, it just really depends. But I appreciate that and don't take that responsibility lightly, because, my uncle had surgery in his knees, and I gave him some topical cream, and he's like, wow, it's just such a gift. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And we have to keep that conversation going so that people understand that. And also so that, some people who are coming in our industry, we have a lot of amazing people that are well educated with like the best of intentions. And then we have people that are coming in from other industries that bring their skills, but some of them don't bring the heart. And that's when we lose that connection with being able to spread the word about it and help people create that container for safe experimentation to get that fit that's good for them.
Absolutely. And, with this rescheduling news, and the big thing to me is just what will open up for the research and what's available with that. I mean, we know all the other areas we have to work with, but we haven't even had the resources or the tools to do that. And that helps from a top. It's hard to argue with, the science of it, the data of it. A lot of people don't care about the passion. They care about that, or, they disregard all the economic benefits and the jobs it creates. Like, it's wild, but I wouldn't be enduring the madness of this industry if I didn't have that real passion for it, and the people and the community. Like, it's one of the most incredible groups of humans that I've ever been blessed to work with. And when you have that passion and that fight, like, it reminds you of your why on the harder days. And we all have the hard days in this industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I call it the dark night of the cannabis soul.
All men.
But one thing I find is that really fuels me on it is, one, having conversations with people like you, and two, like, just getting out there and spending time with our colleagues and finding out, what they're working on, or even just spending time like just with these great people that we get to work with every day keeps me going. Because there are times where I'm like, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of, what's going to happen. There's a lot of speculation. And, when times are difficult for people, there's also a lot of, let's just say LinkedIn isn't a happy place. So I just...
social media platform is,
If I could just not do social media, I would be a very happy girl.
I'm so grateful that I'm the last generation that grew up with it.
Yeah.
That didn't grow up with it, excuse me. Like, I didn't have a phone in middle school. I didn't, it's like watching my nephews, and it's just such a different level of stress and, consumption and capitalism and everything that comes with it. And, I think it can be a positive tool, of course, but unfortunately, it's always the negativity that screams the loudest. You might get 50 positive reviews on a YouTube story, right? And then the one negative one is the one you remember. And that's the culture that media thrives off of and news thrives off of, right? The fear tactics. So it's, I won't go too much on a diatribe, but yeah.
I feel that when I think about, I'm so glad that when I was younger, there was no social media, because that stuff is on your permanent record. And I can't even imagine what I would have posted back then when I was having fun and being slightly wild. And, listeners, it's nothing really controversial, but nonetheless.
You lived your damn life,
Yeah, that's it. I had a friend who decided to go for a trip down memory lane and put some old pictures from my 21st birthday, and I was like, please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Thank you. We can honor that in silence.
Exactly. It was the best of times, and no.
We went on a wonderful tangent, and I think that's going to happen a lot with us because you're so lovely and easy to speak with. But you did ask if I was still involved with Flower Hire.
I did.
Yes, and I am. So I transitioned about a year ago to a contractor. I came to a point of, after working nearly 4 years in the industry, and just I'm a bridge builder. That's my number one hyphen in all the things that I do. I love connecting people. And if you've ever attended any of my events or seen my content, I just have so much love and intention that goes into every single piece. I want people to feel seen and to feel nourished, and so they can just be their vibrant self and know they're taken care of. And so I just came to a point where I really wanted to help and elevate and lift up many other brands, not just one. And what I've loved working with Flower Hire is that it's an ecosystem. It's not just a brand, it helps build brands. And so I left on really good terms, and I'm still producing several events for them. Coming up in Chicago, I'll be doing an event in August, and then I'll be doing another big MJ Biz party in December. So it's been really nice. And I'm also working with a bunch of other clients. I'm doing a New York cannabis investors event next week. And so it's really been a blessing to work with a bunch of different clients, as well as different, I do a lot of women's events, and that's like my real lifeblood and passion, just elevating a bunch of women and marginalized communities. That's kind of my focus. So it's been a ride. And now I feel like 4 years, I'm be coming up on 4.5, is like what, 10 dog years?
Yeah. Well, maybe, and cannabis years, I think it's even more than that, quite honestly. We need this. This is something that's really, really important. It's all hands on deck to be able to support the industry and the people within it, and especially when we're looking at, some of the groups that are very passionate about cannabis but may not be getting as much support and love. I love working with impacted communities and women, because there's just a lot of heart there and a lot of drive, and the stories. I mean, we all have a story with how it is that we got into what we're doing, and it really helps to see through other people's lenses. So I just, I want to thank you for seeing it from all sides and getting in there. And as you're juggling all of this, you have this amazing production that just came out, and I saw the photos from the event, from the opening night with the red carpet and everything, and it just looked like so much fun. But as a stage manager in recovery,
a little trigger. You were like excited, but also like, oh
god, yeah. How was it, and how did you get into it? Where did it all come from? Because I know that it had been done before as a movie. But how did you get into this project in particular, and just dive in? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so it's a pretty wild experience when you're going through your life, and I've never been a stranger to risk taking. I've always believed that I was meant to really make impact on a large scale in my life, even since a little girl. And I'm so blessed that I've kept all of those journals. It's crazy. It's cute. I'm like, oh, you little mischief maker. So I've always taken big risks, and cannabis obviously was a risk. After making a documentary with female athletes was a risk, and you don't always understand how it's all going to fit together. And then one day you blink and something like Reefer Madness comes to your life, where it literally marries my experience in film, in cannabis, in event production, and in theater, which I have experience all in. And so originally the team was looking for kind of like a cannabis events expert. And so Mike Siebold, who I mentioned earlier, and another colleague actually both referred me to this group. And so I spoke with Matthew Rosenthal, who is a co-producer on the production and just one of the loveliest humans you'll ever meet. And we had a first initial conversation, and kind of told me about Reefer Madness and, the revival. And obviously, like, I don't care who you are, whether you're pro cannabis or not, you've heard of Reefer Madness IP. the 1936 scare film, and then, the 2005 Showtime parody with Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming. And before that, in 1999, it was the stage production. And so we had an initial call, and I just loved his energy and told me a little bit about what they were working on and planning. And I asked a bunch of questions, and I already had a bunch of ideas. And he was like, I think we need you. Can you speak with the team like ASAP? And I was like, great, let's talk. So originally I was just going to be kind of like a part-time consultant, and they are a lean, mean team. They are some of the most passionate, hardworking, talented people I've ever worked with. And I'm really lucky to have worked with a lot of incredible humans in my career. But this team, like, I thought cannabis was hard. Live theater, 8-week run on a micro budget, that's hard. And yes, Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming are, lead producers, and Christian Campbell and Amrika Alivio, and I'm butchering everyone's names because I'm in a silo of this project, but it's been incredible. So originally I was brought on to help with like the activation component and bringing on sponsorships, because I've been, producing cannabis events for the last 4 years. And their whole goal was to do this, 90-minute revival. And then every night performance, there would be kind of an after party in the Reefer Den with live music and brand activations. And I'm like, this is where I shine, right? So I was lucky to bring in Camino and Cannabis Media Council and, Sunstone and all these brands that I admire and work with and have been, as well as just some new brands that I've been just so fortunate to be connected with because of this experience, because of everyone in our industry understanding that this is a really big deal for us. This is like, the scare film that started it all and renamed it to marijuana to make it seem more foreign, from Hearst, leading that to today, where all this, rescheduling news and just everything is just, it's pretty wild, the timing and, everything with Trump and all that. Like, this was already planned. So that just kind of fit into the timeline so beautifully. We couldn't have written better history for the timeline. And so originally I was curating these sponsorships and these experiences. And then I kept seeing all these other ways that this very lean, talented team needed support. And so I was like, are you doing an event on 420? And they weren't. I was like, guys, that's the biggest event day for our industry. And it's not because they didn't think about it, it's because they didn't have someone to do it. So I partnered with the artistry and produced a big event on 420 for them. And Kristen Bell and Christian Campbell sang a song. And, we just had such an amazing turnout and community. And so now, I've done a drag brunch for Pride and all these ways, because I'm inclusivity and just what this community stands for is just my backbone for everything I do, and for just my work in general and just the impact of it. And so then, I was noticing no one was working on the playbill. I was like, guys, we need to get this together. And so slowly but surely my role became bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I officially stepped up as a co-producer and have been, responsible for just so many different elements and just trying to help where I can, and also just cheerlead for this beautiful, beautiful project, because the talent is unbelievable behind the, and in front of. We have such incredible actors, and the songs, and, the original composers and writers of the 1999 version. Like, this team is a family, and they have been writing this for 25 years together. So I came in really respecting and honoring that history. And also am one of the only people that's actually been actively in the industry, the cannabis industry, for over 4 years. And so I felt like I was really the bridge between the entertainers and the talent and the writers and the creators to the cannabis industry, and also having a background as an artist, a writer, a director myself. And so that's what I've been. I've been the bridge, and, bringing in the Beard Bros of the world and the Hearst and the Cannabis Nows, because those are, and then the different brands, as I mentioned, and kind of just serving as that bridge. So it's been a real honor. And it's also been one of the wildest experiences of my life. And if you look at my credentials, that says a lot.
Yeah, but it's so impactful because, like you were saying, you with all the culmination of all of your work all comes into play with what you're doing with this, and you are that bridge. And what I was seeing when I was looking online was that both sides of that bridge were embracing this and really getting a chance to connect and enjoy the whole activation, the whole production. And I always say conversation is normalization, and if this doesn't bring up conversation, I don't know what does. But it's an immersive experience, and it's a little speakeasy is how it's set up, correct? For our listeners, could you, and without giving out too much away, because people really need to see the production, but can you give a little bit of an experience of like going through the production itself, because it's much more than just sitting down in a theater.
It is. And I think that's what's so exciting, as to your point of like both worlds are embracing it, because yes, this is about cannabis, but this is also about misinformation and the power of media and the importance of, the stigma and breaking old societal norms and, having a right to choose and just all the things. So it really does hit on all my passion points, as well as I feel like it is that intersection where it's helping our little industry get into mainstream consciousness in a way that we keep fighting and clawing for. And again, we get little wins, but this is a big deal. I mean, Angelina Jolie was at our premiere, Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Mario Lopez, like these are big people that you don't get to typical cannabis events, right? So it has been pretty incredible to see that reception. And so the Whitley was the venue that, we took over, and what this team has done to transform this very neglected venue. I am born and raised in LA adjacent, but I am a huge live music fan. It is one of the greatest inspirations of my life. My first career was music journalism. And I used to go to this venue, which was used to be called the King in high school, which is crazy. And again, that's another full circle moment for me. I'm like, what is happening? And so they had a vision when they went to this space that they would transform it into this very immersive experience. And it was not a small undertaking. This venue, I say neglected, that's a very diplomatic way of describing it. And what they have done with this talented team, and Blazy Susan, who is our co-presenting sponsor of the Victory Garden, which is our outdoor space, which was, I could show you a before and after video. They've transformed it into this lush, beautiful space where you can have, drinks and food under the stars and music. And it's just such an environment that you want to stay and just experience. So you walk in and all of our, waiters and everything are very much in costume and themed, and it's just the minute you step in, you're kind of transformed into this era. And the space itself is very, cabaret feeling, depending on like where you're sitting. And there's really amazing food and beverages. And yeah, it is immersive. Like it's wild to have seen some of the rehearsals and then actually get into the space, and just the actors are dancing all around you. And, some of the seats are, I don't want to spill too much, but
Understood.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a lean, like 90 minutes without intermission, and it just flies, and it's funny and it's heartfelt, and it's just so good. I just believe in this talent so much. And then, as mentioned, so it's Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, 8 p.m. And then Saturday, Sunday, 2 p.m. matinees. And then every Sunday in June, we've been doing something for Pride with All Hail the Queen, Laganja Estranja. She's been events for us, and I can't say enough about her talent as well, and her just like passion for both the plant and for community. And it's just been such a pleasure. She is just one of the best pros out there. And so we're really trying to make this a community, not just a musical, but doing constant events. And we have, David Lamoureux. He is doing live music after the show with his band, and just special guests rotating in. And we're going to have DJs coming in now. We're talking about maybe doing some ladies nights and single nights, and just really trying to service the community, because as we talked about, our community is so beautiful, and they deserve a space that is ours, that we co-create together. And that's what we're really trying to create.
It almost seems like Teatro Zanzani with weed.
Discover the power of Yorma's Choice CBD products. When we chose a sober life, we searched for the best CBD to manage our chronic pain. In Raywood, Kentucky, the home of Bickett and Boone, we found the perfect solution. Yorma's Choice is a range of topicals, tinctures, bath salts, and gummies. Choose Yorma's Choice for pain-free living. Shop now at furpeaceranch.com. FURPEACERANCH.com.
I like it.
So, what was it like working with Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming? Because those are like, when I think of both of them, I just smile, like, just with their work and seeing interviews and things like that.
Absolutely. So Alan has been very busy with Trader, so I haven't been able to spend as much time with him, but Kristen is incredibly hands-on. She constantly has new ideas, and she is the type, she's just as wonderful as you want her to be. And just as smart and just creative. And, she's out there helping with seating plans and moving things herself and carrying, big boxes and just like getting dirty, figuratively and literally. And I just admire her passion. And like, what is so special about, K-Bell, as everyone calls her, is that she attributes so much of the success of her career to this family. This was her first starring role. I believe she was 18 years old.
Wow.
And at the time, she was living in New York, and this whole crew was like, "You're funny." And she's like, "I'm funny?" And they're like, "Yes, you're very funny." And so they really encouraged that part of her. And so she attributes so much of that. So they apparently put up her New York apartment for rent, and she was crashing on couches on all the Reefer Madness original family members. And now she's who she is. And so I think that she's just so loyal and so fierce in fighting and protecting the people that she cares about. And it's just been a real joy to watch that. And just, again, this family, like they've welcomed me, and it's just, yeah, I've never worked with a team like this before. It's pretty special.
It's such a cool full circle story in so many different ways. From prior to that production, with it coming out to scare people, the scare tactics, I remember like seeing these wild-eyed people like rapidly dancing, and I was just kind of like, how does anyone think that this is for real? How does anybody think, oh, I I'll never try that, look at those people? It's like, I think there's a different substance at play if that's what's really happening, to it being used for, celebrating all the changes and creating that conversation and really like getting the comedy gold out of it, which is really cool.
Exactly. The parody and the satirical nature of it. And, that's exactly what this is. It really upholds that of like, if you smoke cannabis, you're a hooligan or a whore, and it's like the descent into madness. And it's fun, and it's also ridiculous. And, it was really fun to have Cannabis Media Council and Hearst involved in this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you can't write a better storyline. And, with Rose Fulton and just so many of the incredible people, and like Rochelle, of course, at Green State, so talented, so authentic. Like,
oh yeah,
we really are working hard to break the stigma. And it's pretty wild that like Hearst is now on the right side of history when they were part of the demise of this glorious plant. And so you can't write that. You can't make that up. It's just handed to us. We're like, okay, let's lean in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And without, no pressure, because I know how things go with like productions and things changing, but what do you, in your mind's eye, when you look at it now, where do you see the trajectory of this, and what are your hopes for the production?
I mean, let's go there, because I believe in manifestation and speaking what you want so that it has more of a chance. And we've definitely have our eye on either Nevada or New York as the next market. Feels like a no-brainer. And because of my experience in cannabis, I have a lot of incredible brands that I'd love to activate in both markets. And obviously, Nevada has come so far, and we're very proud.
Yeah.
And like is obviously we expected the blow up of the tri-state area, and it's been a little slower, and now it's finally ramping up, and I'm really excited to be there next week with the Rainbow Realty Group, who I'm producing the event with, and it is more of a theater town than LA, right? And so it would be really fascinating to kind of bring it back there. But I personally think it couldn't get better than Vegas for Reefer Madness.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now I can't wait for them to, be a little bit better with cannabis around the casinos. That would be super nice. Let's
Get rid of cigarettes and just, cannabis only, please. Thanks.
Exactly. I don't like smelling like an ashtray, but I don't mind walking out of a place having a little bit of cannabis scent on me.
No. But yes, in the meantime, we still have, all of summer in LA, and it's just so incredible. So we have frontage right on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that says Reefer Madness, and it's this incredible artist Shelley who created this mural for us, and it's a spoof paisley on the stars, and so it transforms into like Cheech and Chong and Willie Nelson and like our stars of the plants, and then there's these cannabis wings that, as people love to take pictures with, and so I've been quietly, when I visit the venue or go to one of the shows, just like kind of standing, because it's literally on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like millions of people, tourists in the height of summer, are on this boulevard. And I've been watching people have no knowledge of the show, like, oh, Reefer Madness, and then take a picture with these cannabis wings. And that to me is just, again, mind blowing.
Yeah.
How they're pushing into mainstream consciousness. And that's why I don't take this responsibility lightly. I know that it is a responsibility. It's not just entertainment. It's literally pushing the conversation and the movement forward. And I'm just grateful that I was in the right place at the right time, and, was able to gain enough knowledge and respect in the industry before this entered my life, so I could actually do it the service that it deserved and help line in the right partners to help push that message further.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting into, that stewardship and social impact. Let's talk about Radiant J Productions.
With pleasure. Yeah, so Radiant J, the J stands for my mom, Jane, who passed from cancer. And after I went through that experience, I wasn't even 30. I was one of her primary caregivers. And it just really shook me to my core. And so I quit my fancy job running AMC Independent, and I went to Asia for 3 months on my Eat, Pray, Love, as I call it. And then I was back to really dedicate my life to service. And I've never looked back, and it's been 10 years. And it has been an incredibly hard road. Social impact isn't for the weak of heart or spirit or mind, all of it, because it is more, niche, unfortunately. It just is. And there are always going to be good people, and there's always people that actually care. But unfortunately, the majority does want to know the ROI and what's in it for them. And so it was a real rude awakening with Equal Playing Field, because I was like, 30 women from 30 different countries. Like, this is a global, and like sports teaches you about so many important lessons, and humility and teamwork, and, just perseverance and discipline, and being, keeping your head held high in the face of loss and adversity. And as a woman, as a girl, when you are taught and celebrated for what you can do and not what you look like, for that saving tackle or that amazing goal, or you are set on a different trajectory for your ability, and not just the world saying, oh, she's pretty, right? And I have really just always remembered that. And that was, it came out last November, which was actually a week in between my mom's birthday and that, which felt like another just beautiful little like blessing. And it was like 6 years of pain and but also beauty and inspiration and so many stories. And these women have changed my life forever. And I did get distribution and it won an Impact Doc Award. And
oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And it was honored this last August for the Women's World Cup by the U.S. Embassy of Australia. And they had me speak in front of the consulate to spearhead their DEI initiative around sport and development. And so they gave me this public diplomacy medal, and it's very isolating creating something that people don't see for years. There's not a quick hit here. And it just felt pretty incredible. Again, I took the responsibility seriously of these beautiful, brave warrior women trusting me with their stories. And like some of these like countries, like these women, some of them have never left their villages before this. And some are like renowned athletes like Lori Lindsay from the former US national women's team. So it was just so spectacular. And so that, if I didn't want to quit movies after that experience, I think I'm a lifer, and I am. On the cannabis note, I made this series called Cannabis Stories, and furthering one of our earlier threads of the why. When you actually take a step back and you ask people about their why, it's just so inspiring, because most people in this industry, not all, but most, have a very personal why. And so you can check it out. It's called Cannabis Stories. I've done 2 editions, and I really want to take it further, female founders, people of color, and just really get into the why behind this plant and the incredible people that are championing it in all the different ways. There's not one way to advocate for this community. And so I created that. And then I do a ton of events all over the country with, people in cannabis, brands in cannabis and beyond, tech, gaming, you name it. And then I'm working on my next docuseries called Skate Margins. And these women actually found me through one of the cannabis events that I did for women. And they followed the thread and the comments and then went to my website. And they're like, I've been wanting to tell this story for 30 years, and I want you to tell it. And it's about these incredible female skateboarders, and the stories are insane. And they, again, just wanted to participate in the sport that they loved, and they encountered sexism, racism. We have Stephanie Person, who's the very first, Black professional female skateboarder on record, and her stories are insane. It's just like all of that. So it's going to be a docuseries, and I'm in development on that. Transparently, it's been a little bit put to side because Reefer Madness has been very all-consuming, but it's still very much in motion. And now that Reefer Madness is a hit, not just by our own standards, but the reviews are absolutely glowing, and we're just so grateful that things will start to, be able to kind of go more in cruise control a little bit after the last few months of absolute insanity, just getting our child out there. Right. And now it's feeling that. So yeah, that's kind of what's my slate. And I feel very, very blessed that I get to work with so many incredible people for so many different projects.
That's so cool. Going back to what you're talking about with your work, as a creative, like the work that you do, like you said, there's a lot of work that you have to do on your own. There's a lot of things that, it's when we're doing creative projects, a lot of times you're like in this silo for a while till things are released. It takes time. And then there's also the additional thing of, I can't wait until we live in a world where we're judged on, the quality of our work and the heart that we put into it, rather than, whether we're male, female, white, person of color, what have you, where it's just human to human. But it is also challenging as a woman in creative, and for, it can be a lonely place until it comes out or somebody comes up to you and they've been impacted by your work and tell you about it. What advice do you have for people who are in that space to keep them going and to keep them inspired and just really not feel maybe so alone? And
I have some mantras that I've adopted. Progress, not perfection. Set yourself up for success. And, you know, in terms of that silo, it is really isolating and it is really challenging. And I have a lot of respect for people that know, you know, when they need to walk away. One of my greatest qualities and worst qualities, which I think is very often the same, is that I have a really hard time giving up when I believe in something. And sometimes you really do need to know when it's time to walk away. And in the case of being an artist or, you know, an advocate or in social impact, which all my work does have that social impact lens, you have to be so fiercely committed to your vision and your passion because you're going to get rejected so many times. And your job is to not convince them otherwise, because you're going to find your tribe. Your job is to stay so rooted in your own passion and conviction and vision that you find those people that celebrate that uniqueness and want to help rally behind you. But you are going to be met with so much adversity and so much challenge. And that's part of it. And it's not for everyone. And there's no shame in walking away and saying, well, I tried. But in my case, I don't know how to do that. And you know, that's what led me to Flower Hire originally, because I went all in on this movie and then a pandemic hit. And so I needed to kind of swallow my pride and get full-time work again. And that hurt because I was so close to that film becoming a hit. And then, and there's a lot of, you know, bullshit artists in the world and ghosters that do, like, it's the same in dating, right? As it is in career, it's the same. And I do believe the first interaction, they mean it. They want to back you. They want to fund your script. They want to be on your show. And then they get caught up in their lives. And generally it's not personal, but when it's your heart and soul on the line, it can feel personal. And so my advice is always self-care cannot be compromised. You have to take care of yourself. And again, you will find your tribe, but you have to have courage and to lean into the unknown and to fight and to spread that gospel wherever you can. And I do believe that if you refuse to quit and you find your own lane and you never compromise on your integrity or authenticity, which I never have, despite 50 no's in a row where you're just like, oh, is it me? Yeah. At a certain point. But if you don't, I do believe you're going to get there.
Yeah. And it sounds like it takes some nimbleness too, because you were able to swallow your pride and go into something that you had not done before, but it actually in the long run turned out to dovetail very beautifully into what you do. And that's something. Like I always tell people, if you're working on something and a bunch of people think you're crazy, you're probably on to something.
Yeah. I could not agree more. And you know, they say if it doesn't scare you, your dreams aren't big enough. And I think that I'm not someone that says everything happens for a reason. I think that wants to give us a false sense of control. I've been through too much tragedy to subscribe to that. But I do believe that every experience has a lesson to teach you. And that if you're open, something might just come to you like this, where you're like, oh, now I see.
Yeah.
Now I understand. And you know, I would never have traded my experience in this industry. I believe in everyone and what we're doing so much. And if I didn't go all in and have 50 no's, I wouldn't have been forced to swallow my pride and learn a new industry, and look where it led me. So I think just that openness and being nimble and also being receptive to the lessons that much wiser people can teach you, and also the collaborations that might change your life, that is worth investigating.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think, you know, I know for me, some of the most difficult times in my life where I'm like, why the hell is this all happening? And then there was this part of me that was like, well, I remember saying out loud to myself, I'm supposed to learn something from this, and I'm really waiting for the day that it comes to me. And it took a minute. Not gonna lie.
And then it's cute how we're like, I've surrendered. And it's like, you haven't really surrendered.
There's no surrender.
Like, surrender 10 more times and then we can talk.
Yeah, exactly. God, you've just had a very, very interesting and fruitful career. Like you've definitely you've made some creative lemonade in the best of ways. And that's just beautiful. That's just beautiful.
It has not been boring. And I would say that, traveling in general has been one of my greatest teachers. I've been to 44 countries. I've put in some work, and I try to put that into my lens of when I create anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's, an event or content or a collaboration, because that worldly sense of humility and knowing that at our core, we're not so different.
Yeah.
Despite your, socioeconomical background or your passion, your interest, or this, at our core, we all want to feel seen, loved, and heard, and to feel part of something bigger. And so that really guides everything that I do. And I'm definitely still in that pinch me moment, because like I now am creating content all around, like, and events, and everything that I'm doing is so meaningful and so me. And I'm having that moment of just like feeling I'm just exploding with gratitude right now. And I will never take this journey for granted. Never.
Yeah. And your work is touching the hearts of so many people and getting people talking. And that's super, super important. Because I know for me, like when I was my first time through school, I was in theater, and my mom was like, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, because theater gets people thinking in ways that they may not in the normal world in a conversation. It opens the mind to different ideas through entertainment. And
what happens?
Yeah, it does, especially with all the work that you've been doing. So for people who want to check out the show, check out your work, follow you on social media, and I know that's a lot, but how do they do that?
Yeah. So Amy Rosie on Instagram, and I'm just Amirose Eisenbach. It's a mouthful of a name. Thanks for bearing with me. On LinkedIn and socials. And Radiant J Productions is my website, and I'm very active. I just, because it was such an isolating journey for me, getting my bearings, I really try to be there to mentor as many people as I can, whether it's one word of advice or looking at a project quickly or whatever it is. And so I try to walk my talk as much as I can. So if there's anything about this that touched you or you feel like you'd have insight to, definitely reach out, and I will show up for you the best I can.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to get to meet you and talk with you. And I'm really looking forward to future conversations, because I think there's going to be a lot of great things to talk about in the future too. I'm really excited, and I can't wait to check out the show.
Thank you so much. And I'm excited to share a joint with you in person and talk more soon.
I would love that. Thank you. And everyone, remember, if you like listening, please give us a review, share it with a friend. Let us know what your favorite episodes are. And if you'd like to stay in touch over social media, we are Planted with Sara Pion on Facebook and Planted with Sara on Instagram and Twitter. You can also go to our website, www.plantedwithsara.com, or listen to us on our parent network, Radio Misfits Network, where there are other great podcasts, like one of my favorites, the Winemakers Podcast. So check it out. You can listen to Planted wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether that's Pandora, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Tune in. We are there. So join us, and until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, it's a wild world out there. Be good to one another. Until next time, take care.